Hello and welcome to another edition of ProtoBalls Talk. I'm ProtoMet.
I'm my recycled balls.
And I almost screwed up the title.
Goddamn. Today we're talking about not Star Wars.
We're talking about Star Wars Episode 4, The Journey Home.
What?
The Voyage Home.
That's...
Star Wars Episode 4, The Voyage Home.
No. Oh no. Get out of this house. Be gone from this place. No, it's not Star Wars, A New Hope. It's Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home.
I was intentionally being dumb.
The fourth film of the original series, released in 1986.
I was born that year.
Very, very nice. That's nice. Do you want a cookie?
Yes.
Okay. Released about a year before the start of the next generation, so it's around that time frame where the old became new, and it's a completely different film to its predecessors by a mile, by a wide fucking margin.
It's like if you were going into this movie expecting the same kind of experience that the first three brought you,
No.
You will be surprised.
No.
I won't say disappointed though.
No, you won't be disappointed on this one, but returning to the director's chair is Leonard Nimoy after his successful debut in Search for Spock. And he comes back in here and he breathes a bit more life into the characters here. But released on let's see here. Released on November 26, 1986. It's about 2 hours long. It's just past 2 hours long. Had a budget of $21 million and box office of $133 million. So it made a lot of money.
Well, with all that dumb stuff that nobody actually cares about out of the way, let's get on to talking about the show.
You bitch. You bitch. Yeah, okay, so the movie starts off right in the middle of Star Trek 3. We get a flashback sequence of a sort.
Yeah, it's at a Federation tribunal or whatever, where they're basically discussing what to do with Kirk. And the Klingon ambassador wants Kirk's head because of the actions taken against Klingons in the previous movie.
The supposed atrocities against the supposed potential atrocities against the Klingons. and in comes Spock's father, Sarek, who's like, hey. Didn't your Klingon strike first? And the Klingons... Irrelevant! Look at this Genesis device! You're telling me this wasn't supposed to be a weapon of mass destruction? No. I don't believe you! And so
I demand you arrest Kirk and
exile him.
No, not exile,
What's the word? Extradite.
Extradite him to Vulcan, or not Vulcan, to Klingon... home
to
world.
The Klingon home world of Kronos.
I did not know that.
Yep, I believe it's Kronos. And the Federation ambassador is like, yeah, here's the thing. Kirk's kind of a fugitive right now. We don't even know where he is.
Well, I demand that you bring us Kirk, or there won't be peace.
And he's like, there's already not peace. We already have him on how many different crimes. Let him. We'll handle him. You leave us alone. After all, you crossed the neutral zone first. And the Klingon ambassador is just highly irregular.
And for all the blusher that this Klingon guy brings to the table in
he's incredibly vacillating.
In all of this that he brings to the table with regards to wanting Kirk dead.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter for the rest of the movie.
No, it doesn't. I had to laugh though. As soon as the tribunal was over, Somebody goes and screams at him, "You pompous ass!" Immediately, that should signal your first. That should clue you in that this is not like other Star Trek movies. Easily.
But yeah, no, this whole Klingon blowing his top over Kirk has nothing to do with the rest of the movie.
No.
If anything, this opening scene is really just kind of recapping Kirk and the others' situation.
Yeah, in the last movie, but so we then cut out into space, and there's a Starfleet. There's a ship exploring out there, and they find a probe. And
Gross.
and they don't know what it is or what it's doing, but it's making a weird noise.
And draining the power supply to, like, completely bone dry. It's draining that ship, the investigation ship's power, completely. Leaving him dead in space, practically.
All they can do is send out a distress, and it's coming towards Earth.
Oh, yeah.
Which, very similar to another Star Trek movie. I wonder which one.
I call that lazy and unoriginal, if not for the fact that the rest of this movie exists.
Yeah, that is true. But the ship sends out a distress message to Earth, basically saying, "Hey, shit's going down. There's a giant fucking thing." So then, on Vulcan, we're back on Vulcan.
Yay.
And we're meeting with the crew.
Who are fixing up the Warhawk that was left behind by the Klingons.
The bird of prey. Bird of prey.
That was left behind by the Klingons at the end of the
And
movie.
Kirk has a talk with Lieutenant Savick, and this is
her only appearance in this movie.
This is her only and last appearance in the Star Trek films. And she's
such a send-off. Just, hi, bye.
Yeah, it's basically like, you need to stay here so you can stay safe, because you have nothing to do with us.
Yeah, to be fair, she was part of another crew that got involved in some other stuff, and she just happened to get involved with Kirk because of circumstances.
So Savick stays there, and we cut to Spock in what I can, I guess, call it sort of like a computer fray, a training facility for Vulcan logic skills.
I mean, just
rattling
off and typing off answers to questions that are shot at him rapid fire.
Until there's one shot at him that he doesn't know the answer to.
How do you feel?
And he's confused by this because, he's a Vulcan, and he still hasn't
fully recovered from,
he's still
resurrecting.
He's and all but name resurrecting, yeah. And his mother comes in,
who is not played by Winona Ryder, as it turns out, and I demand a recount. Oh. I've never actually seen the remakes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Anyway.
So she comes in and she's like, "Well, the computer knows you're half human. Look, sometimes humans don't think logically. They all came back for..." He basically... She recounts him through the whole... The good of the many is more than the good of the one.
And the counter, where sometimes the...
Or sometimes the good of the one is better than the good of the many. And Spock says, "Well, that's not very logical."
Well, humans aren't very logical either.
It's a very, very nice scene between mother and son.
Yeah.
So they're ready to go, and Kirk basically says, "All right, let's cloak this thing, and we'll go back. We don't want to get shot out in space." And
yeah, because they know that the Federation is waiting for them. The Federation knows they're coming. The Federation didn't send them a transport to come pick them up, so they kind of have to hoof it back to the Federation on their own, which...
in the Klingon bird of prey, which is totally dangerous. Also, the Federation knows that Enterprise was blown up. So that's another thing.
They call it the Bounty.
The Bounty.
They call the bird of prey the HMS Bounty.
Which is hilarious. Which is great.
Which at no point at all actually alludes to anything that happens later on in the movie.
No.
And I'm actually being serious about that.
It's just a funny joke. It's a joke in reference to their position. Because they're basically fugitives, so like the bird of prey is practically a bounty.
Yeah, the early parts of this movie does have a few moments that you might think have some allusion to something happening later on. Nope.
They're just jokes.
The Klingon guy being a jerk doesn't get brought up ever again.
Nope. But anyway, the probe finally makes its way to Earth, and it's causing all sorts of shit going down. It is causing natural disasters left and right while it's still trying to send out its code.
It's drained the Federation in the area to being pretty much bone dry, and they're just desperately trying to send out distress signals.
And we're introduced to another new character, Admiral Cartwright. He'll come back in another movie.
I'm not gonna lie. When I first saw him, he kind of reminded me of Scatman Crothers, just younger.
And with hair. Yeah. Okay. So. I don't have anything to say to that.
But I will say that I really like the fact that for really minor character, they have like a full-on, completely designed alien character in costume. Yeah. And it's a minor character. I love that. I love that little detail.
Yeah. As you can see, the budgets start getting a bit better and ha. But yeah, the probe is just wrecking all sorts of shit. And
it's vaporizing the ocean with its signal that's being sent out. And
the Federation is completely
at a loss as to what to do. So they have to send out distress signals, which end up getting picked up by Kirk and his crew.
By the HMS Bounty.
With Spock joining along I assume on his mother's suggestion.
Yeah, he's pretty much joining along because he wants to stand alongside his friends, or what have you.
Or at least try and figure out why he wants to stand alongside his friends.
So so Bones and Spock have a little heart-to-heart. Well, tries to have a heart-to-heart. And Spock is having none of it, and Bones is getting flustered because he's like, God damn it, what happened to you? I mean, okay, you were dead, yeah. That's true. Forget it. Because Bones wants to know what's it like to die.
Pretty much.
And Spock isn't being helpful. He's not really giving him any helpful answers. Mm-hmm. So they pick up the distress signal, and they get the code that the probe is sending out, and they're like, huh, okay, that's weird. And Spock goes...
Not yet. They actually get close to Earth when they start when they actually start picking up the signal that the probe is sending out.
Yep.
And this is when Spock gets a flash of inspiration and goes off to investigate something while Kirk and the others are still doing other stuff.
Yeah, they actually slow down the probe a bit to get a clear picture of it because of Spock's suggestion. And Spock goes down to the computer areas, and he's like, "Whales, humpback whales."
Yeah. So turns out the probe is the signal the probe is sending out is intended for humpback whales.
And Spock and Kirk's just like, humpback whales? Yeah, humpback whales. You know, the ones we drove to extinction years ago. Oh no! Also, I know we completely missed it. We completely missed this at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was right to bring it in because, humpback whales and stuff happening. But this was released in 1986, and earlier that year in January, the Challenger disaster happened.
Oh yeah, they opened the movie with a dedication to the Challenger disaster,
and it's
incredibly tasteful.
Yeah, a movie that is about peaceful space exploration, and it's not, you can't get any more classy than that.
I have no clue what that has to do with humpback whales, but
It'll make sense in a bit. Speaking of humpback whales, so they're like, well, humpback whales are extinct. What do we do?
So yeah, the probe is trying to send out a signal to a race of creatures that no longer exist in the universe.
And Kirk, on a flash of brilliance, is like,
let's time travel.
Let's time travel.
He sends a message to the Federation. And it's like, hey guys, we're gonna try time traveling to fix this problem.
And I just love everybody's reaction to it. They're like, what? Huh? What? Time travel? Mind you, Kirk and crew have time traveled before in the original series, no less, in about 3 episodes. So it's not an impossibility. It's just what the fuck. And a bird of prey too. This ain't the Enterprise. So Spock is like, okay. Well, the computations are pretty hard, and Bones is like, well, why don't you guess?
And Spock, who is still in Vulcan mode, is like, guess?
What the hell is guessing?
He doesn't see that as being very logical.
Bones gives up, and he's just like, fuck it. So they prepare to time travel, and it's a brilliant scene.
An incredibly weird scene.
Yeah,
that makes no sense.
But brilliant.
What a brilliant one.
So they shoot around the sun.
And that causes some stuff to happen. We see giant CGI heads morphing into the different characters in the movie.
The way I see it, it's something along the lines of the Doctor Who sort of time vortex.
Except completely nonsensical.
Yeah, except psychedelic.
Even more psychedelic.
Yeah.
And there's like one line that we hear during all this, during just a whole mess of voices that becomes relevant later on, which is Kirk recriminating Spock for basically putting the lives of an entire planet on the line.
Yep.
And that's completely without context.
No, I think it's from...
Put a pin in that.
Yeah, we'll do that.
But then the crew wake up.
They wake up and they're like, huh, did we make it? I mean, obviously.
The retro thrusters, they fired, so probably.
The braking thrusters, yeah. But so they find some whales. They locate some whales.
On Earth. In
Good.
1986.
Exactly, and that's why.
In San Francisco.
And welcome to the rest of the movie.
It's Kirk and the crew in 1986 San Francisco. And it is glorious.
Oh, it is so good. I love... This is not one of my favorite Star Trek movies, but goddamn do I love it. Oh,
that is such a ridiculous premise. And
it is number 4 on my top.
Going back in time to 1986 to get humpback whales from San Francisco to save the future. How much more ridiculous can you get?
And it works!
It works! Really well!
Oh. So they land in the park.
Golden Gate Park.
And there's two...
The bird of prey is cloaked at this point, so that nobody sees it.
So they're flying into Golden Gate Park, and there's 2 trash men
who are just collecting the trash and
talking about
shooting the shit.
And a giant wind blows, and they're blowing over, and
they see a strange light in the middle of the park, and they decide to hoof it. Yeah, they didn't see nothing.
They get the fuck out of there. And we're assuming it's early dawn, so it's about early dawn. So Kirk and crew...
They depart the ship.
Well, first off, Kirk and crew have to assess the damage. Everything has gone to shit. They don't even know if
the dilithium crystals are destabilizing and
they don't even
decrystallizing.
They don't even know if they can make it back. And they say, well, the only way to... Yeah, the crystals are destabilizing. We don't know if we can get them back up. And they gotta fix a bunch of the other shit.
Plus, they need to find a way to actually, hold the humpback whales once they get them.
Because, it's 1986!
Also, they have to find the humpback whales in San Francisco.
Yep. So they leave, and they make it to downtown San Francisco in the middle of the day. Kirk almost gets hit by a car, and it brings one of the best lines of the entire movie. Hey, watch where you're going, dumbass! Oh, yeah?
Double dumbass you!
Yeah. Oh, yeah? Well, double dumbass on you! So they're like, what's money? We need money.
Yeah, because in the future, they don't have money, apparently.
It's like they turned into communists or something. My God! I'm kidding. It's clearly a meritocracy.
Anyway.
So they go to a pawn shop, and then Kirk tries to sell off his glasses.
The glasses he got from
Bones in Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
And Spock's like, but those were a birthday gift from Dr. McCoy. They will be again. Well, I'd be willing to give you $100 for it. Is that a lot?
So, Kirk has to divvy up the money.
$20 for just about everybody, I think.
And he basically gives each team their mission.
So the reason the dilithium crystals are decrystallizing is because they're unstable at the moment. But Spock poses an idea that, well,
in this time period, there is a rather toxic way of forming energy, nuclear energy.
So what they do is
they have Scotty and McCoy go
find a way to make a way to
the whale tank.
Yeah, basically build a whale tank. Kirk and Spock go off on their own to find the whales.
Sulu, I think.
Sulu goes along with them.
With Scotty and McCoy, and
that leaves
Uhura and Chekhov to go get the nuclear energy.
Chekhov is Russian
in 1986.
The joke writes itself.
I love that there's just one scene during that subplot where Chekhov and Uhura go up to a policeman and they're asking,
"Do you know where the nuclear vessels are in Allegheny?"
And the cop just looks at him. It's like, are you serious?
Is this real?
Is this actually happening?
So to make this easier, we're gonna split it up into three parts. We're gonna split it into the Scotty Bones part, the Chekhov Uhura part, and then the Spock and Kirk part.
The Spock and Kirk part is the majority of the film.
Yes.
The Sulu stuff is really tangential, but I just kind of assumed that his task went so smoothly.
Well, yeah, his task was to get a ride to carry the shit to get the tank in order. And that's why.
And he basically gets that done pretty early on.
Yeah,
he doesn't really get a whole lot to do in this movie, but the scenes he does have are pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty important for the whole thing in part. But so we'll go with the Scotty and Bones one because this sort of happens first. But before that, they all split off. After looking wildly out of character in the middle of the street. Spock and Kirk and Spock try to get on a bus, and they're like, "What's exact change?"
Yeah, they actually they're trying to figure out how to get to where the whales are,
and they find how to get to the whales.
Spock decides, I'm going to look at this map and examine it and try and find it. Well, Kirk just kind of looks over at a bus that's parked nearby that has an advertisement for the whales on it. And it's like, Spock, I think I know where they are.
Oh, and the park is not SeaWorld, but for the sake of consistency, we're just gonna call it SeaWorld
because it's basically
because
SeaWorld.
it's basically SeaWorld, and fuck
Kinda.
off with that shit. Okay, don't try to play it off. But...
So they head to the sea park to.
So we cut to Scotty and
Bones.
and they're wandering the street, and they're like, "Well, how the hell are we supposed to get materials?" So they need walls, glass walls, to be able to hold these things, and they don't know where to go.
And there's a building like right by them that basically is advertising the Yellow Pages.
Huh? The Yellow Pages actually serving a use in a movie. Go figure.
Well, to be fair, the Yellow Pages were still a relevant thing back then.
That's true. So they managed to find the facility, and Sulu stays behind. He goes over to a helicopter area where for hauling all the materials. They go to a construction company, basically.
Plexicorp, I think?
Plexicorp, I believe. And so he's talking with the pilot, and he's like, oh yeah, I remember these. Basically faking that he knows how to pilot it, for the most part. And then Scotty and Bones go inside, and
they pretend that Scotty is like some scientist from Scotland. Because it works so well. And they feign being upset that
nobody knows that they're coming.
Nobody was preparing for their arrival.
So the manager's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I will give you a tour of our facility.
And Scotty gets super into the role and gets super fake upset over the fact that he's being treated this way. It's like, oh, I traveled millions of miles. Thousands of miles.
Yeah, that's an actual... I traveled millions, thousands of miles. Space.
So anyway, they managed to get a chat with the manager of the company, and they have a chat, and
basically it goes like this: how thick would your strongest material be in order to hold 18,000 tons of water pressure? And the guy does some quick calculations. He's like, about 6 inches. And Scotty goes, what if I told you there was a way that you could do the same thing, but only 1 inch thick? And the guy, has a laugh. He's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's totally possible. Yeah, okay.
So then Scotty offers to use the computer.
Which oh my god.
He bungles that up so much. He tries yelling at the computer.
Computer, turn on! Because, the future.
At one point, McCoy hands him a mouse, and he starts talking into the mouse.
And he's like, why don't you... And the guy's just like, why don't you use a keyboard? Because he doesn't know any better. And for all he knows, this guy's just insane. And he's like, a keyboard. How quaint, cracks knuckles and starts typing away. And then
he basically shows the manager the formula for transparent aluminum, which was actually mentioned earlier in the movie as something that doesn't exist yet in that time.
And so Bones is like, are you sure this is a good idea, sharing it with this guy?
How do we know he wasn't the one who invented it?
Boom! Boom!
Time paradox resolved until,
Yeah. Time paradox resolved, for now. Don't sweat the little details.
But so basically, they give the manager this formula for transparent aluminum.
Basically say he's going to be rich beyond his wildest dreams if he makes it for us.
And they do that so that in exchange he provides them with the plexiglass sheets that they need for the tank, which then Sulu later transports to the ship.
So that's...
We'll get back to that.
So that whole thing is resolved. So now we'll go to Uhura and Chekhov. And like us at the scene where they're trying to talk to people and get them to tell them where the nuclear vessels are. Not nuclear vessels, the nuclear vessels.
Vessels. Where are the nuclear vessels?
Which brings up the old Star Trek joke. I'll say nuclear vessels. No.
There's actually one point while they're trying to get this information from the cop where Chekhov asks the woman who's passing by,
Where's the nuclear vessels in Allegheny?
in Allegheny?
I don't know. How about Allegheny? He's like, well, that's exactly what I said, no? Oh, God, I love Chekhov in this movie.
Eventually, they do manage to get to Allegheny base. And with the help of Scotty, who's back at the ship at this point,
Yep.
they beam into the HMS Enterprise.
Yeah. At night. They have to do it at night, and they have to teleport in. They don't just waltz in.
So they kind of...
They go into the generator room and steal
start using a device to absorb some
power.
Some power. I feel this is a decent enough point to kind of take a break.
Yeah.
I will mention that their actions don't go completely unnoticed, which results in the base kind of going on a small alert to search for the cause of the
Nuclear flux.
the nuclear flux that the base is experiencing.
Yeah.
We'll stick a pin in that and come back to it because I kind of
It's important later down the road.
yeah, we kind of have to get back to the Kirk and Spock plotline.
So Kirk
first.
and Spock are on a bus. They finally managed to make it on a bus. And
a lower class bus, and there's this punk who's just playing this loud.
This punk, played by one of the producers.
just playing this really loud and obnoxious music.
Like, almost like Dead Kennedy's level obnoxious punk.
And Kirk politely asks him,
could you turn that shit down? It flips him off.
Flips him off, turns the music up.
So then Spock is like, all right, I see how it is. Leans over, gives him the Vulcan nerve punch, and knocks him out, turning off the music.
And everybody cheers! Everybody on the bus cheers!
Woo! All right. Mind you. So Spock has had to cover his ears, by the way, because
he's wearing a torn piece of his
cloth, his suit,
the robe that he's wearing, and he's tied it around his forehead as like a bandana.
Oh man,
to cover his long ears.
The fucking jokes of it all too, of his attire. Oh, it's funny.
At one point, I think Spock questions why there's so much swearing, and Kirk it's
a colorful metaphor. Look at the people of the time and the literature of the time.
Kirk basically explains to Spock that if you want to talk to these people, you basically have to swear every other word.
And it comes back as fucking jokes. Oh my god, it's amazing.
So Kirk and Spock get to not SeaWorld, where they kind of sneak into a guided tour of the facility.
I'm pretty sure it's just free to enter anyway, so I don't know.
I'm just saying that they sneak
into a tour.
Being led by Doctor.
Hold on. She's such an inconsequential character to the series.
To the movie.
To the movie, she's pretty important, but no, she's pretty fucking inconsequential. Hold on.
And she's played by the actress
Jillian Taylor.
And she's played by the actress who would later go on to play the mom in Seventh Heaven, which fits in quite nicely with that one
Captain Decker.
Captain Decker from the first movie, who was played by the actor who would go on to play the dad in Seventh Heaven.
Yeah. So Jillian Taylor, she's leading a tour on the whales.
Talking about whales and how people have been hunting whales for centuries and how it's a pretty bad practice, and actually showing some...
By the way, I just want to say it's a nice callback to Wrath of Khan because of the whole Moby Dick angle. Kirk was Khan's Moby Dick. Now here they are trying to save whales. So, it's a nice little callback, if coincidental.
Actually, I'd more say that Kirk was Khan's Moby Dick.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I don't know what I said.
You said Khan was Kirk's Moby Dick.
Oh, no, Kirk was Khan's Moby Dick. Yeah, that's what I meant. Either that or it was... Either that or Khan was Kirk's Captain Ahab.
that works.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
it's just a nice little.
So Dr. Jillian is basically telling the tour group about the whaling industry and how it's not a good thing, and showing some surprisingly graphic footage of whaling vessels
killing
whales. And I was not expecting it to be that graphic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
a comedy, but it doesn't pull any punches.
Clearly, this is the moment you realize that this movie has a message.
Yeah, I wonder what that message is.
I couldn't tell you.
But so yeah, so Jillian Taylor's talking about the whales, and she says, "Well, these whales, George and Gracie,
that they have at the facility, are
soon to be put out into the wild."
Because there's some funding reasons, among others, and it's just not financially
solvable
for them to keep the whales.
Financially solvent for them.
So they have to release the whales, and at one point, when they actually go down to the aquarium area to actually see the whales, Spock breaks off from the tour group and decides to go for a swim.
Yeah, So they're going down the steps, and Spock instantly disappears, and Kirk doesn't know where he is. He's like, "What the hell? Where'd he go?" And we cut to the windows, and there's Spock swimming down. And because he's Vulcan, he has ginormous lungs, because Vulcan is basically this giant.
And he has like a little mind meld with one of the whales.
With Gracie. He has a mind meld with Gracie.
And Kirk is just like,
oh no! And everybody can see it. Everybody
an old lady, kindly old lady, is like, what's that man doing?
She's like, maybe one day we'll be able to understand what these whales are saying. What's
that man doing?
What about that man? And turns around and she's like, what the hell? Oh my god! So Kirk and her beat it, and Kirk's right behind him. Her.
She goes to confront Spock, and Kirk is right there with him, because
Kirk's just trying to get Spock out of trouble.
It's like, oh.
And it's here that we see Spock using those colorful metaphors.
He basically just adds the word hell in every other word while talking to this doctor.
So they're being confronted, and Spock just drops the bomb that Gracie's pregnant. Well, no, not yet. Not yet.
We practically drops the bomb that Gracie's pregnant.
Yeah. Practically drops.
I think it's actually at this point that we learn that the whales are being taken away because
they're being taken away, and the Spock is like, if we were to do as we please with these whales, we would be no good. We would be no better than the people who drove them to extinction. And Jillian is like, huh? What?
Stick a pin in that.
Stick a pin in that.
That'll become relevant soon enough.
So they're kicked out. They're basically kicked out.
Pretty much, yeah.
So they're walking down the road.
And Jillian decides to
give him a ride. She's like, so your friend, what's wrong with him? Oh, he's from Berkeley back in the 60s. Did a little bit too much LDS.
LDS.
LDS?
LDS, huh?
LDS, huh? Okay,
like she suspects that there's something up with these two.
She thinks they're in the military because Spock was referring to Kirk as Admiral.
Yeah.
Which,
despite the fact that Kirk told him to just call him Jim.
Yeah. But you know how Spock is.
Spock is just like that. You know, he keeps calling Kirk Admiral openly.
Openly, yeah. And so they're driving, and it's here when Spock drops the bomb that Gracie's pregnant. She stops. She slams the fucking brakes. She's like, "What? How do you know?" She told me. Huh?
She really likes you.
She really likes you. So she wants to know what the fuck's going on.
So they decide to go get something to eat.
Kirk in his late 50s, schmoozes this woman in her, I assume, early 30s, into going to dinner with him.
You guys like Italian? Spock's like, no. Kirk's like, yes. Spock's like, no. Kirk's like, yes.
Pause.
Spock,
yes.
Spock responds, yes. But first they decide to drop Spock off in the park.
He's like, you sure he'll be alright over there? Yeah, he'll be fine. He'll be fine in the park. And then Spock disappears, gets teleported up.
But she doesn't notice this because Kirk's there to kind of distract her.
Yeah.
So they go to a pizza place, they order 2 pies.
So Jillian's just like, okay, tell me what's up.
And so, despite the fact that Kirk tries to beat around the bush about it, he does have to come clean with her that he's from the future.
From the future, we're here to save whales because humanity's on the brink of extinction, basically. And she's just like, huh? So then she basically reveals, yeah, there's going to be a big ceremony tomorrow at noon.
Which surprises Kirk because they really need those whales like as soon as they can.
So they leave.
They go back to the park, and Jillian does mention that there's a tracking.
Yeah,
devices
there's a tracking device in the whales.
So that they can keep track of them after they're let free. And Kirk does ask for what the frequencies to track the whales is, but she doesn't reveal it.
Because she still doesn't believe him.
She doesn't quite trust them just yet.
So Kirk leaves and disappears, basically.
In a flash of light that causes Jillian to
look
back in her truck and see that he is gonzo.
Yep. So she finds that weird.
But he does tell her that if she changes her mind to come back to the park,
yeah,
he will find her there if she shows up.
Mm-hmm. So let's unpin
the whole Chekhov thing. Well, now that Allegheny Base is on alert that somebody...
They gotta book it out of there as fast as they can, because they got the energy they need.
They got the energy they need, and they're waiting for Scotty to beam them out. Chekhov tells Uhura to take the device... Chekhov tells Uhura to take the device and get beamed out first.
Not knowing any better...
He probably didn't brush up on his history regarding Earth,
and he gets caught because
he gets caught because there's like a jamming thing because the ship doesn't yet have enough power to maintain the contact with Chekhov, so he loses contact with the ship. Yep. They can't track his position, and
he gets caught, and
he gets caught, and this results in quite the scene where he is being interrogated by this guy, and Chekhov is just telling the straight truth.
And this guy is like...
without revealing anything.
And this guy's like, well, what do you think? Well, he's a Rusky, isn't he? Well, he seems insane. And Chekhov stands up, grabs his stunner.
And threatens them, and actually shoots one of the guys, except the phaser doesn't work.
And he's like, oh.
Then he tosses it to him and books it. So there's this chase throughout the Enterprise with the Navy trying to catch Chekhov, and
it leads to disaster.
They get up to the deck, and the soldiers tell everybody aboard to hit the deck, which I did not know that's what that actually meant.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody gets down. Chekhov jumps off the side, and doesn't end well for him.
Chekhov is about to get away. He's almost home free.
But then some more soldiers show up in front of him.
And he tries to climb up, and he slips and falls, and he hits his head.
And it doesn't end well for him. And he winds up in a hospital. It's at this point that everybody gets rejoined. Jillian goes back to Nazi world and basically discovers that in the middle of the night, the whales were transported without her knowledge, which infuriates her.
Dick move, dude.
Dick move, boss guy, whose name I can't remember. Dick move.
Yeah.
So she hoofs it back to the park to try and get Kirk's attention. The bird of prey is still cloaked, so she's just shouting. And then she spots a helicopter come by and a guy come out of thin air to
Scotty comes out of thin air
to help lower these plexiglass sheets into nothing.
And she's like, "What? Kirk! Kirk!"
And her shouting gets Scotty's attention, and he notices her. He calls up Kirk, who then sees her and goes down and lets her in.
Yeah, teleports her up. And she's like, "What the fuck is going on? What? You were honest? What? No!" So anyway, so they're all talking, and it's like, so where's Chekhov? Oh, Mercy Hospital. We gotta get him out of there.
So then Kirk, Jillian, and McCoy all head to Mercy Hospital and actually trick their way into Chekhov's room.
There's an amazing scene where they're passing...
passing this lady who's going in for dialysis, and McCoy just kind of casually hands her some pills.
He's like, dialysis? What is this, the Middle Ages? Here, take this.
Hands her some pills, tells her to take them, and then walks off. That'll be somewhat relevant later.
Yeah.
So they managed to trick their way into the operating room that Chekhov's in.
And hold them at gunpoint. They hold the doctors and nurses at gunpoint.
And force them into another room and then phaser the lock on the door, locking them in. And the doctors initially have no clue who these people are, what they're doing, and they end up trying to stop these unknown people from saving this man's life.
They assume that they're spies.
Because Chekhov has a Russian accent. They assume he's a Russian spy.
Yeah. And these guys are here to bail him out.
And they kind of are, but not for the reasons they think.
But they managed to get out, and the guards at the door were like, "Hey, this one's a guy. Yeah, change of plans."
Oh, no. What happens is McCoy puts this device on Chekhov's head, and that actually cures the brain hemorrhage that Chekhov had.
Yeah.
And he recovered. He's still a bit out of it, but he's able to regain consciousness. And then they start wheeling Chekhov out, and that's when the guard notices that, hey, wasn't that a woman before? Change of plans.
Change of plans.
And so there's this chase scene through the hospital, and we actually pass by the woman that McCoy gave some pills to.
And she's surrounded by doctors and nurses, and she's like, "Doctor gave me pills, I grew a new kidney." A fully functional kidney?
Fully functional! It's such a hilarious moment.
You see why I love this movie?
I can see why you love this movie.
It's so stupid, but so good.
And they
escape. They escape.
They get into an elevator going down. The officers head down to the next floor to try and intercept them. And when they get there and the doors of the elevator open, they're gone.
Yep.
They are gone because they got beamed out. So now all the ducks are in a row. And now they just need to, get off planet. Yeah. By the way, using the nuclear power, they did manage to restore functionality of the ship. And so then Dr. Jillian tells Uhura the frequency for tracking the whales. They head out to the Arctic Ocean to go get the whales, and discover that the whales are being hunted by a whaling party.
Yeah.
So they gotta rush to save these whales.
Long story short, they scare the fucking douchebags. They scare those douchebags.
The whalers fire their harpoon, and it hits nothing.
Just
kunk, kunk. It hits nothing.
And they're like,
what the?
Whoosh.
And then the bird of prey decloaks.
And they're like,
and they're about to hit the thing, so they have to veer wildly to not hit the.
It's like the Monty Python Quest for the Holy Grail. Run away!
Except not involving a murderous bunny. This time.
Not this time. Those whalers will get what's coming to them in Deadliest Catch, Season 5. I kid.
That's about lobster fishing.
I'm kidding. Jesus Christ.
But yeah. So they managed to beam the whales and the surrounding water up into the tank successfully. And now they've got to just make it back to the year 2300. Or the 23rd century, sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
And they ran out of power because they basically teleported into Earth. Or they basically time traveled back into Earth. And their plane, the bird of prey, just whoosh hits the water.
Yeah, they do manage to successfully time travel back to the future.
Yeah.
And they
end
up having to crash into the
ocean.
ocean.
Yeah, by the way, they took Jillian with them.
She kind of forced her way in.
Yeah.
Like she with the whales gone, she really had nothing else going on in her life.
She basically had nothing to live for.
Those whales were everything for her.
So
everything.
So they hit the water, and
Jillian's with them. The whales are trapped because they crashed, and they can't get them out. So Kirk actually has to go in and free the whales himself.
Yep.
From some epic maneuver that I can't actually remember what he does.
I don't remember exactly what he does, but it's not important.
It's not important. He manages to get the whales out. The whales receive the message from the probe and reciprocate their response. The probe's like, "Oh shit, let's get out of here,"
and it leaves.
Everyone
Yay! Yay! But the movie's not over.
No, because Kirk and his crew actually still have to face charges for the events of the previous movie.
I just want to say, I'm fucking glad that we're breezing right through this movie, too. we breezed right through this movie, because it's a comedy.
Oh, yeah.
And it's 2 hours long, but it doesn't feel like it.
We don't have to overanalyze a whole lot.
Yeah. It's a straight comedy.
Pretty much, yeah.
And you know what? It's 2 hours long, but it doesn't feel like it.
No. It goes by at a very brisk pace. And
so they're standing trial, and Spock stands with we forgot about a throwaway joke though, because Spock wasn't sure if they were going to be able to make it back, and Bones told him, "Hey, why don't you make a guess?" So Spock tells Kirk
on the return trip,
"Yeah, I'm gonna make a guess," and Kirk's like, "Spock, you making a guess? Well then." And Spock doesn't know how to take it.
Yeah.
It's just a funny joke.
It's a nice acknowledgement that Spock has finally accepted the more illogical side of himself.
So they're standing trial, and Spock stands with them, and
the court is like, "You're not among the accused. You don't have to stand with these accused." And he's like, "Well, I choose to stand with my crew."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the court's like,
well, after weighing all this and, the recent events with saving the Earth and everything, we've decided not to...
we've decided to drop all but one charge against you.
And...
Disobeying...
And Kirk prior to this point was basically taking full responsibility for everything so that the others wouldn't be prosecuted for basically his reckless decisions. And so... all the charges are being laid against him, and the court decides to drop all but one. Insubordination.
Insubordination, basically. And they say, with you accepting guilty to this charge, we've decided to, what's the word? Depromote?
Demote.
We've decided to demote you from Admiral.
As punishment, you will receive a 1-rank demotion from Admiral
to Captain. And so it's really just like a slap on the wrist.
Basically.
Honestly, this dude avoided jail time because he brought whales back from the past.
And saved the future!
Sort of.
Kind of.
He may have fucked up a lot of things long term, but you win some, you lose some. So the crowd's all like, woo! Yay!
At no point does that Klingon guy from the beginning even show up, so...
Yep. He's probably sulking.
We also see some other just extra alien characters in fully designed costumes, and that... I just love that detail.
It's after this tribunal that Spock sees his father, Sarek. And they have a chat. And it's here that Sarek, after so many movies,
And such time in the show.
where throughout the original series, Sarek never showed approval or pride in Spock
Or Spock's decisions.
or Spock's decisions. In Search for Spock, he felt grief over the loss of his son, but he never specifically said he was proud of his son. He was just sad that he lost his son. It's here, after 4 movies and over 30 years, that Sarek tells Spock, "I'm proud of you. I'm proud to have you as a son." And Spock reciprocates, saying, "I'm proud to have you as a father."
Yay!
And that's the end of the movie.
Well,
Sort of.
There is one scene where Kirk is talking with Jillian, who's now got a new job taking care of the humpback whales. Because it's not like they have an expert in the field at that point in time.
Yeah. By the way, she never shows up in another movie.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, as we say with Kirk, got the lady and then immediately dumped her.
Technically, one could say she dumped him.
Yeah.
Because she never bothered to give him her number.
Right. That's true. So the movie ends.
But they do part it in an amicable way.
So
implying that the problem's going to be a booty call at some point.
So in the end, the crew, they're all being reassigned. And they finally see the ship that they're being reassigned to. The New Enterprise!
Woo!
The Enterprise 1A, I believe it's called. So we got a new Enterprise, a new ship for the crew to use. Sure, the old Enterprise is dead, but hey, we got a new ship, you know? Don't be too sad. And that's where the movie ends.
And what a movie it was.
What a movie. My God.
That was such a great movie. Like we said before, this movie has an utterly ridiculous plot, but it manages to pull it off successfully and make a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. Of the 4 Star Trek movies that I've watched in full, this is my second favorite.
Yeah, when you rate them out. So, the first one was a straight Star Trek episod. It had
just really stretched out to the point of...
It had the
thematical...
It had the thematical and... it had the thematical philosophy of the first series, of the original series.
But without being so goddamn boring for most of its run.
Yeah.
And it adds in so much more comedy to make everything a lot more lighthearted, despite, the apocalyptic catastrophe going on in the future.
Where the first movie had the thematic philosophy of the original series, and the second movie was sort of a straight military movie with a deep message about,
and some great character
development, a deep message about life, death, and growing old, and accepting that death is a part of life.
And then the third movie just kind of happened.
The third movie is just sort of a popcorn flick that ties the 2 movies together. This one is a comedy, straight comedy. The message is there, but it's not shoved in your face.
It's like, here's our message. Now here, go have some fun.
Yeah. See?
That's great. I love that.
So yeah, out of the 4 movies, I'd still, in my opinion, worst to best.
Right.
So far, motion picture.
Oh, definitely.
Search for Spock, The Voyage Home, and Wrath of Khan. In terms of favorite, motion picture, Voyage Home, Search for Spock, Wrath of Khan. Those 2 are just sort of interchangeable.
In terms of favorites, I would agree with your first list. Motion picture, Search for Spock, Voyage Home, Wrath of Khan. So far, we've watched some pretty darn good movies. I mean, first movie was the worst among them, but...
It was still interesting. It still was interesting.
It still had some really good ideas that just drug on for so long.
It God, what was that? That was about 3 hours, wasn't it?
No, it was definitely over 2 hours for sure.
God.
But
See, it felt like 3 hours. That's the thing.
yeah. But this movie goes by at such a brisk pace, and there's something happening just about every scene, and it's fantastic.
As you said, we've watched some great movies, some great Star Trek movies. The next Star Trek movie is, in the best way I can put it, so bad it's good.
I haven't even seen it yet, and I'm not exactly looking forward to it based on what I know of the plot. Would you like a teaser?
Sure, let's give them a little taste of what's to come.
The crew search for God.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Ah! Yeah, so that's the next movie, Star Trek movie that we're doing.
The next one we cover will be the next Gundam Origin movie, so look forward to that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
until next time, I've been ProtoMet.
This is my recycled balls.
See ya.
Have a good one.